I'm confident that the local low for Bitcoin is not in, and in today's quick video, we'll be discussing exactly this. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So first of all, on the weekly chart, we can see that Bitcoin did go ahead and tag this fair value gap as we've been discussing on the channel. Now, I've noticed your comments getting angry with me when I'm bullish or bearish and when I share both scenarios over the medium term. So let me just be extremely clear with what I'm seeing on the charts and what I think could play out. You know that in one of my previous videos, I talked about this Bitcoin head and shoulders pattern, and it is still very much in effect with this pump. You'll also remember that if you've been watching the channel thoroughly, I talked about the fact that it would be way too easy for us to just go straight down without liquidating some shorts beforehand. So this is exactly what we're seeing right now. We tagged into the 100K region, and now we got a very, very nice bounce. And on the weekly time frame, this could potentially turn into a green candle, which a lot of people would think is extremely bullish. Now back to this head and shoulders pattern, let me tell you exactly what I think will happen. First of all, we set that low, we got that pump, and right now it does seem like Bitcoin does want to trickle on a little bit higher. We see that we have this wick over here on the daily time frame at around 106.8K. This would be a key liquidity zone, and as a matter of fact, we have a lot of liquidity between 106.5K all the way up to 108K. I still think that this head and shoulders pattern is valid despite the fact that we go ahead and bounce into that region to grab some more liquidity. If you can't understand this and you just think that someone should tell you that the market will be going straight down or straight up, it's clear that you're a newbie in this industry. So I'm just addressing some comments there because it's pretty frustrating to see that some of you don't think that the market can chop in both directions before making its next big move. It's not only straight up, it's not only straight down, and no one has a crystal ball. So my base case, as I have been saying for a very long time now, is that Bitcoin will likely chop around in the summer. And I think what we're seeing right now is the start of this chop. Now, I just drew a hypothetical range here. We'll have to see how it actually develops. And once we tag both sides of this range, perhaps we can make the range a little bit thinner or a little bit larger, but you get the point. My base case is that we will be chopping around in the summer, and I don't think that what Bitcoin is currently doing is ready to explode to a brand new all-time high to 120K and beyond. Of course, there is always the possibility in the more medium term here that we can tag these wicks and liquidate more people. However, it is not my current short-term base case. I think that Bitcoin will struggle right around this region, and this head and shoulders pattern on the daily time frame will continue to play out as we continue to chop around and form that right shoulder to then go ahead and dump. So that's why I started the video by saying that I do not think that this was the end of the local bottom for Bitcoin. That is currently my base case, especially if I already have the expectation that we will chop around within a range. It doesn't mean that the market is over. It doesn't mean that I'm max bearish. It just means that I think the market does need to cool off since we had all of these massive green weekly candles. Bitcoin cannot just continue up in a straight line. It needs to consolidate first. And we saw the same kind of scenario last summer. We had fewer of these explosive green candles, but ultimately Bitcoin did go ahead and consolidate for around 8 months. Now, I don't necessarily think that that has to be the time frame for this form of consolidation. I do think it could be quite a bit shorter throughout the summer, and then maybe around end of Q3, Q4, we can go ahead and really break out and set an aggressive all-time high, which would likely be the top of the cycle. This is currently my base case, so I hope I've made myself clear. I do think that Bitcoin can grab liquidity to the upside before going ahead and moving potentially lower. And the reason being is not just because of this head and shoulders pattern, it's just a matter of liquidity. We saw that a lot of liquidity was building to the upside, and it would have been far too easy to go ahead and just max short this market, especially some of the people that went ahead and entered very high leveraged late shorts. We're seeing them getting punished here as Bitcoin continues to crawl up and grab this liquidity to the upside. And if we really zoom out and look at the Bitcoin exchange liquidation map, it paints the same picture. Previously, the cumulative long liquidation leverage was much higher than the cumulative short liquidation leverage. But right now, as you can see on this chart, the shorts are continuing to pile in as Bitcoin continues to trickle on up. So this just gives more fuel for the price to actually move on higher and liquidate some of these shorts. Now, I'm not saying that we will go ahead and liquidate all of these shorts, but likely the majority of them may be going all the way up to around $108,000 because we can see that there is a ton of liquidity around these regions. As I mentioned, between 106.5 to 108K, there is a lot of liquidity to be grabbed. So it's highly likely that Bitcoin could go ahead and maybe even form a nasty wick into that zone to liquidate everyone. And as we continue to crawl up, this would likely encourage more and more people to go long in the market, only to move lower and then liquidate those longs. So right now, if we take a look at the daily time frame, what am I looking at? Before we can even talk about 106.5 to 108K, we do have a very critical resistance right here at around $106,000, give or take a couple $100 depending on which exchange you're looking at. The reason why this is important is because previously we were never able to get daily closes above this level, as I've been discussing on the channel. And it's funny how these daily support and resistance levels come back into the equation many months later. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. Right here, we did get the daily close above it, and at that point, I did say we will be getting an all-time high because this is all the confirmation we needed. Daily closes above this 106K level. Then we made an all-time high, and we failed to hold above 109.5K, which was the previous all-time high. So this only made sense that we would go ahead and move lower from there because the market looked weak at the previous all-time highs. And I do think that if Bitcoin were to come up to this level right here, 106K, and start getting closes in the 106.5 to 108K region, at that point, we would be talking about potentially moving higher, and this head and shoulders pattern would be invalidated. However, it is still highly likely, in my opinion, that we could be wicking to this level between $106.5 to $108,000, grab liquidity in that zone, and then continue to complete the right shoulder before we move lower. And according to my summer chop thesis, this would entirely be possible, where Bitcoin just chops around and shakes a lot of traders out. Now, I also want to apologize about my sensationalized thumbnails and sensationalized titles. The reason I do that is because this helps the algorithm get my video out to more people. But ultimately, I would recommend that you watch the entire videos and you don't judge the content based on those two very minor aspects. And just to wrap up this video, another note on Bitcoin dominance, it does look like we're going to get an extremely bullish weekly close. And just to say it again, 66% dominance is imminent. Despite some of these aggressive dumps in Bitcoin dominance on the daily time frame, I stood firm and kept my conviction, and I still think that Bitcoin dominance will be moving higher. So if you want to trade anything that I discussed in today's video, you have the second link in my description down below, which brings you directly to Bluffin. I have these insane bonuses specifically for you if you use my link down below, whether you're a whale trader or if you're just a regular trader. Also, we have the first link in my description down below, which brings you to my free Telegram community, where sometimes I talk about some trade setups, and we do have a signals group that you can get access to. And that sums up today's quick market update. So my base case is that the local low for Bitcoin is likely not in, despite the fact that I'm seeing more and more shorts in the market, which makes me believe that we will go ahead and grab some of that liquidity to the upside before we potentially see this head and shoulders pattern play out. If Bitcoin starts to consolidate above that previous wick on the head and shoulders pattern, and we start to get daily closes above that level, then of course this pattern is invalidated. Now you know my base case. We will also be chopping around in the summer, and until proven otherwise, I will stand firm on this. So if you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.